The first time I saw Cody, he was burning burgers at some cookout in 2011, standing there with this confused look on his face like the grill had personally betrayed him. "You're burning those burgers," I told him, and instead of getting defensive like most guys would, he just laughed and handed me the spatula. Smart man, honestly, because I actually know how to cook. We were both in our mid-20s then, and I remember thinking he was exactly the kind of stable, reliable guy I should be with. Not the most exciting person in the world, but he had a good job. Nice smile. And he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say, which was refreshing after dating all those losers who only wanted to talk about themselves. Moving in together after about a year felt natural enough. Cody was the type who actually split chores without being asked and never left dirty dishes in the sink, which sounds boring, but trust me, after living with slobs, it was like winning the lottery. We had our routines, pizza nights on Fridays, coffee runs on Saturday mornings, binge watching whatever series I picked because he never had opinions about that stuff. He proposed in 2014 at the same coffee shop where we'd spent half our weekends, which was sweet in that predictable Cody way. The wedding was nice. Nothing too fancy, but everything I wanted. The first few years of marriage were genuinely good. We settled into this comfortable rhythm where I handled the social planning and home decorating while he took care of finances and maintenance stuff. He'd bring me coffee in bed on weekends and actually listen when I complained about my coworkers, nodding in all the right places and agreeing that yes, my boss was being unreasonable about deadlines. We'd established these little traditions that felt like real partnership. Him picking up my favorite Thai food when I had bad days. Me watching his stupid action movies without complaining too much. It wasn't passionate or dramatic, but it felt solid. You know, like we were building something that would last. Then the office hired Derek as our new IT guy, and everything shifted in ways I didn't expect. This man walked into our building looking like he'd stepped off some romance novel cover. Tall, broad shoulders, and this incredible long blonde hair that caught the light when he moved. I'm talking seriously gorgeous. Like that old Fabio guy from the butter commercials, but actually attractive instead of cheesy. The first time he fixed my computer, leaning over my desk to reach the cables, I caught myself holding my breath because he smelled like expensive cologne and confidence. Not that I was interested or anything, but I'm not blind either. I started mentioning Derek during dinner conversations with Cody. Just normal work stuff about how competent he was compared to our last IT person who couldn't fix anything without calling tech support. He's tall. Has this long, flowing, blonde hair like that. I can't believe it's not Butter Guy. I told Cody one night, and instead of being normal about it, my husband made this joke about whether Derek rode a white horse to fix my printer. Real mature, right. Like, I can't appreciate when someone's good at their job without it being some big thing. But that was typical Cody, turning everything into these little comments instead of just listening. When Derek started joining our lunch group, it felt completely natural. Jenny and Michelle from accounting were always looking for new people to eat with. And Derek was friendly and funny in ways that made those boring lunch hours actually entertaining. He had opinions about restaurants and movies, unlike some people who just shrugged and said whatever you want every time we needed to make decisions. Me, Jenny, and Michelle are going to lunch with Derek tomorrow. I'd tell Cody, and he'd nod like it was perfectly normal, which it was. We were just coworkers being social, exactly like adults should behave in professional environments. The thing about Derek was how he actually paid attention when people talked. During those group lunches, he'd ask follow-up questions about things I'd mentioned and remember details from previous conversations. When I complained about how Cody never wanted to try new restaurants, Derek would recommend places he'd been, describing the food in ways that made me want to experience it myself. You should check out that new Mediterranean place downtown. He'd say, they have this lamb dish that would change your whole perspective on Greek food. See, actual engagement with what I was saying. Not just polite nodding. My phone started buzzing more throughout the day. Usually Derek sending funny memes or asking questions about work stuff that could have waited until morning. Nothing inappropriate, just friendly conversation between colleagues who enjoyed talking to each other. But Cody started getting weird about it, making comments when I'd check messages during our TV time or asking who was texting so late. Just work stuff. I'd tell him, which was technically true. Derek and I talked about office drama, complained about our boss's ridiculous policies, shared jokes about the ancient coffee machine that barely functioned. If Cody had bothered asking specifics instead of just looking suspicious, he would have understood how innocent it all was. Working late became more common when Derek started staying after hours to handle system updates and maintenance. The system crashed, and Derek had to stay to fix it. So I stayed to help. I'd explain to Cody when I got home around 8 or 9 instead of my usual 6, which was helpful. Honestly, because someone needed to test things after Derek finished his repairs, and I knew our systems better than anyone. Those late evenings were actually productive. Just the two of us working efficiently without all the usual office distractions and interruptions from other departments. Derek gave surprisingly good advice about personal stuff too. When I mentioned being bored with my hair routine, he suggested this expensive conditioning treatment that his sister swore by, and honestly, the results were incredible. My hair looked shinier and felt softer than it had in years. Cody barely noticed, of course. Just mumbled something about it looking nice when I specifically asked his opinion. But Derek noticed immediately the next day, commenting on how healthy and vibrant it looked. That treatment really worked. He said, "You should definitely keep using it." Finally, someone who appreciated the effort I put into my appearance. The office holiday party that year was more fun than usual, probably because Derek actually knew how to have conversations about interesting topics, instead of just standing around drinking beer and talking about sports. We ended up chatting most of the evening about travel and books, discovering we had similar taste in thrillers and mysteries. He'd been to Italy the previous summer and described the food and architecture in ways that made me want to book a trip immediately. Meanwhile, Cody spent the entire party talking baseball with the guys from facilities management, occasionally glancing over at me like he expected me to come stand silently beside him. When Derek and I laughed at some inside joke about our boss's terrible presentation skills, I noticed Cody watching with this weird expression, but he didn't bother coming over to join the conversation. Late-night phone calls started happening after Cody fell asleep, usually around 11 when Derek would call to decompress from his day or discuss some work situation that had been bothering him. These conversations could last an hour or more, covering everything from office politics to personal goals and frustrations. Derek was dealing with some family drama with his parents, and I found myself looking forward to these talks where we could really open up about deeper stuff. Cody was always asleep by 10:30, dead to the world until his alarm went off. So these calls never disturbed anyone, just two friends supporting each other through life's complications. Everything changed one Tuesday night when I was in the shower and my phone started buzzing on the bathroom counter. Cody must have glanced at it, because when I came out wrapped in my towel, he was sitting on the bed holding my phone with this expression I'd never seen before. "So, dessert, huh?" he said, and my stomach dropped because I knew exactly which message he was referring to. Derek had sent me a photo earlier, nothing too explicit, but definitely not something you'd show your grandmother, along with some flirty comment about what he wanted for dessert. It was playful, not serious, but Cody was holding my phone like it contained evidence of murder. "What are you talking about?" I said, reaching for the phone, but he pulled it away and started scrolling through our message thread. The look on his face was getting darker by the second as he read through weeks of conversations, seeing inside jokes and casual flirting that looked much worse out of context. "It's not what it looks like." I tried explaining, but he just kept scrolling, finding the photos Derek had sent and the messages where I'd called him gorgeous or mentioned how boring my evenings at home were. "We're just friends who got carried away," I said, which was completely true. Nothing physical had ever happened between us, but Cody wasn't listening to reason. His hands were actually shaking as he read through message after message, and when he finally looked up at me, his expression was completely cold. "Just friends," he said, holding up the phone to show me one of Derek's shirtless photos. Friends send each other pictures like this. I tried explaining that Derek had been working out and was proud of his progress. The people share fitness updates all the time, but Cody was already past the point of rational discussion. He'd found the messages where Derek called me beautiful and I'd responded with heart emojis. The late night conversations where we'd talked about being unappreciated by the people in our lives. "It was only flirting," I said, sitting down on the bed and trying to get him to look at me instead of that damn phone. Nothing happened. We never even kissed, which was absolutely true. We'd never been alone anywhere except the office. Never touched beyond casual shoulder pats or brief hugs. Goodbye. But Cody was acting like I'd been running some secret double life. Like a few inappropriate messages meant I'd betrayed everything we'd built together. "We can work through this," I told him, reaching for his hand, but he pulled away like I was contagious. The next morning, Cody was gone before I woke up. And when he came home that evening, he had divorce papers. Actual legal documents? Like he'd spent his entire day at some lawyer's office instead of trying to have a rational conversation with his wife. "Are you serious right now?" I said, flipping through pages of legal language and asset division. "We had one fight and you're ready to throw away 7 years together." But he just stood there with his arms crossed, looking at me like I was a stranger who'd broken into his house and rearranged all his furniture. "You made your choice?" he said when I tried explaining how we could fix this with counseling or therapy or just better communication going forward. "Now I'm making mine," Like it was that simple. Like marriages were disposable things you could just toss out when they got slightly complicated. I begged him to reconsider, pointing out how good we'd been together, how this was just a rough patch that every couple goes through. But Cody had already made up his mind. And once he decided something, he became completely stubborn about it. The divorce process was a nightmare of paperwork and lawyers and dividing up everything we'd accumulated together. Cody was efficient and businesslike about the whole thing, like he was handling some corporate merger instead of ending our marriage. He wanted the house. I could keep my car. We'd split the savings account and retirement funds. No drama, no fighting over sentimental items, just cold financial calculations. When I tried bringing up good memories we'd shared or asking if he missed what we used to have, he'd redirect the conversation back to legal details. Within 6 months, Cody had completely transformed himself. He joined some gym and started posting pictures of his workout progress. Built this whole social media presence around fitness and baseball and hiking with his buddies. Suddenly he was this outdoorsy, athletic guy who went rock climbing on weekends and played in adult league baseball. Where was this energy when we were married? All those years I was trying to get him interested in new activities, suggesting we take dance classes or travel somewhere exciting, and he'd just shrug and say maybe later. But the minute we're divorced, he becomes this adventure-seeking fitness enthusiast. The most ridiculous part is how he acts now, like he's better off alone. Like marriage itself was the problem instead of just needing better communication. He actually told people he's never getting married again because he can't trust anyone not to betray him. Betray him. Like having friendly conversations with a coworker was equivalent to running off with his best friend or emptying his bank account. He's turned himself into this cautionary tale about the dangers of commitment, when really, if he just paid more attention to what I needed in our relationship, none of this would have happened. Derek ended up transferring to another company a few months after everything blew up, so that whole situation resolved itself naturally. Turns out he wasn't looking for anything serious anyway, just enjoyed the flirtation and attention while it lasted, which proves my point about the whole thing being harmless. If Derek had been genuinely interested in breaking up my marriage, he would have stuck around and fought for me. Instead, he moved on to his next job and probably his next workplace friendship without giving our situation another thought. Meanwhile, Cody's living this supposedly fulfilling single life, working out constantly and hanging with his baseball buddies like he's reliving his 20s. His social media is all gym selfies and sports events, like he's advertising how much better his life is without me in it, which is fine. Honestly, if he wants to pretend that throwing away a perfectly good marriage over some text messages was the right decision, that's his choice. But he shouldn't act like he's the victim in this situation when he's the one who refused to work on our problems like adults. The whole thing could have been avoided if Cody had just been more secure in himself and our relationship. Confident men don't lose their minds over their wives having male friends or receiving compliments from coworkers. They trust their partners and communicate openly about concerns instead of jumping straight to divorce papers. But Cody always was a little insecure, always needed constant reassurance that he was doing enough, being enough, making me happy enough. Maybe that's why Derek's attention felt so refreshing. He never needed me to manage his emotions or stroke his ego. Looking at where we all ended up, I'm honestly better off too. Being married to someone who can't handle normal workplace friendships or adult conversations about relationship needs would have been exhausting long term. At least now I know what I'm looking for in future relationships. Someone secure enough to trust me, interesting enough to keep me engaged, and mature enough to work through problems instead of running away the minute things get complicated. Cody's out there living his best single life, and I'm free to find someone who actually appreciates what I bring to a partnership. The irony is that if he'd just talked to me about feeling neglected or wanting more attention, I would have listened. I'm not unreasonable, but instead of having that conversation, he chose to snoop through my phone and make assumptions about my intentions. Then when he found exactly what he was looking for, evidence that someone else found me attractive and engaging, he used it as an excuse to blow up everything we'd built. That's not love, that's possession. Real love fights for the relationship instead of looking for reasons to escape it.